teachers themselves need to be very clear what we're assessing for, right? And so we're talking about assessing students' thinking, and we made it explicit in the class where the ongoing learning allows students view the content. There are plenty of assessment strategies and really tools, but to make it a practice, it goes back to the word practice itself, right? That's ongoing. And I think one of the most powerful assessment practices that is so often done very superficially is feedback. And like what I mentioned earlier, if the feedback doesn't help a child to say, what can I do with this piece of information? What can I do with what the teacher just write to me? And the feedback really is quite shallow. It's quite meaningless to the child. But the practice becomes real to the students when the feedback becomes something that I can act upon. It causes me to ponder, it causes me to redirect and say, I need to re-examine, I need to re-look at this. Re-look at purpose, maybe clarify some of the evidence there, or even offer more examples or counter examples. See, these are ways that the feedback is powerful because it allows the child to feed forward. That feeding forward becomes something that is perpetuated in the classroom, right? And that forms that learning culture, because assessment becomes then so well intertwined with learning, right? That said, we need to pause here because really, how frequent do we do this? Our assumption is when they are doing, they are thinking, but how often do we see that translates into good writing? How often do we see students able to write a strong summary or to write a good critique or a journal of the experience? They'll just be able to descriptively tell you the steps, the actions. See? So that's why feed forward needs to be planned and to be communicated in the classroom. That communication is important because I am not just giving you my marking rubrics. I'm explaining to you, I'm asking you for your opinion and say, hey, if this is what I mark you upon, right, or this is what I base, are there certain things that you think I should place more emphasis? So that I'm actually showing to you my teacher schema and saying, I think these are valid points, these are important things. But at the same time, I may intentionally leave out gaps and say, what other dimensions would you help me? Or what have you written that I haven't considered? That's why you bring the level of the learners to say, hey, I'm really modeling the co-creation. No longer am I talking down to you. No longer am I saying, I'm giving you this set of criteria to mark upon. I want you to tell me what is valuable. That's where the child becomes cognizant of saying, the trust, the high expectation that we talked about earlier, is translated to me, and I really need to take seriously what I've written. And I'm not saying, oh, this is a terrible piece of work, I cannot contribute. If a teacher sets that culture in the group work, and I bring that now skill up into how I expect the class to do that all the time, and I design that time and say in every part of my lesson, in every lesson, I would have at least a good 5 minutes for students to consolidate. In part of the consolidation, they acquire those words, those criteria, those formal knowledge that I need them to have. So it goes beyond procedural. One more point. I feel passionate about this. We tend to see learning or understanding or even thinking from a very cognitive point of view. Oh, there are levels of thinking. Is he now analyzing? Has he transited into the next higher level? Is he able to synthesize some of these? But all of this takes time. You see? And again, the time is a non-negotiable because good thinking and well-learned understanding requires more than just here. When the time, the experience itself will draw that effective learning. It's just like in the field. I mean, I'm a bio person and I like natural sciences, but the thing is, you see like how pollination happens. It doesn't, each of our students is like a flower, but they don't stand alone. When the wind blows, the wind pollination, they spread that infectious learning, and that's where assessment becomes translated and say, whole class, let's do it, Cher, are we there already? As a child can tell you that, and the class pushes into that and say, are we thinking in these dimensions? You know, and they ask of you when you start to say, as a teacher, I don't know. You know, oh, I tell you, that's where the whole field of learning becomes real. You know, and that's where really we are co-creating knowledge. You know, and that's where the textbook just becomes a tool. That's where the internet just becomes a source of reference. You know, and but that's where the knowledge becomes owned by the children. Very often we look at these critical inventive thinking skills. I hope teachers move away from the thinking that, you know, all of these complexity, ambiguity for the children to be able to logical, to reason, to diverge, to come up with possibilities. They cannot just sit within project work. Really. They cannot be just sitting within project. Because project work has its own philosophy, has its own schema. Right? But can that be part of our teaching? Can that be part of learning activities that I design? And it need not be like 10 weeks long. It could just be a 20 minutes where really I get students to collaborate deeply. I give them a task that they may not be able to solve then, but by the end of this unit, you know, they can see the resolution. They can make that connection. You know, that's where it becomes so real. That's where a child's informal knowledge becomes real, it becomes consolidated. It becomes what I teach is what you will gain. And I think we want our children to enjoy learning like that.